Thanks everyone for joining our electrical safety community monthly call for March. Um, I'm Dan Henderson. I'll be, I suppose, chairing this as we go through. Bit of an introduction. So the conference insights. We had a conference in October in Chantilly, Virginia, on electrical safety and reliability. 2 days. Really good. Lots of collaboration. Lots of idea sharing. Really good experiences from everyone. Really, not just the speakers, but the attendees who really drove that discussion. There was lots of drive and enthusiasm around trying to do the right thing. And then typically the conference ends as they do. And the purpose of this is obviously just to keep that going. So we want to keep that good collaboration, idea sharing, and those experiences of everybody in the community, not just in the committee, and try and promote working on these key themes that we've identified along the way, not just at the conference itself, but also in discussions with others since then. And the aim is to share that information and try and, I suppose, help each other by learning from each other's experiences. So just so you know, you will get a recording sent after the call. Please use the post-call survey just to let us know if we're talking about the right things or if there's certain things that you want to know more of. Make use of the chat throughout, but please don't be afraid to raise your hand. The good thing about Zoom is we're trying to get people engaged in the conversation. So as we're talking, if you want to get involved or put your experience across, tell us what you do, what you've tried. It might have been the same thing that we're talking about. It'd be really good to get your experiences or your inputs or your questions if you want to ask the speakers anything as well. And after each session, we will be circulating slides and minutes. So you will get this afterwards. So just a brief intro. We have established an initial steering committee. And again, this is ever changing. This is just, again, to have people to identify these certain work streams, share this knowledge and experience, and drive the work streams that we've put together. So how we want this to run is we've got an hour call. The steering committee are going to present the work streams. We are going to do it a bit different this time, where we're going to have a bit more focus on key topics, just based on feedback that we've received from you guys in the community. Especially when we've got a good topic going, we don't really want to cut that off. It's all about that information sharing. What we would like is people in the community, so you guys on the call, to present your input. So it might not be just, to raise your hand. If you know what the key work streams are, because we're going to go through them. If you've got things that you do in your workplace that you've tried, even things that haven't worked out so well, it'd be really good if you could feed them back. They will link into work stream. Anything in electrical safety, they're quite wide, the work streams. So no doubt, whatever you have done, good experience or bad, it will fit. And if you're willing to share it and someone can benefit from your experience, then that's really beneficial. Just let us know in the chat or email us afterwards. I'll put it in the survey and we'll come back to you. But we really want to promote people in the community getting in touch and letting us know what you guys do, what works, what doesn't work, or what you'd like to know more of. We review this each month, and then we'll do this call once a month online. The intention is to have an in-person review. The steering group own the work streams, and then we'll keep progressing. So if you guys are working on things linked to the work stream actions, again, that's where we want to get your knowledge and have things changed in the workplace. The idea, I guess, the aim of all this top level is we had a conference, we've talked about some of the key issues. Now we're trying to work on them and work together. So hopefully, when we get to the conference later on this year, we can reflect on what we've done over the last 12 months and see if we've actually made any dynamic changes in electrical safety in the workplace. And it's not going to be changed dramatically over 12 months, but I'd like to think we're in a better place than where we were last year. So with that, I'll now hand you over to Wayne, who's going to take you through a safety moment.
Hey, thanks, Dan. Thanks everyone for joining. Appreciate your time. We all understand your time is precious, and we want to make sure that we're bringing value to you and to the industry. Just to brief review, any incidents that we do cover, we do remove all personal. So there's no names, no contractor names, no equipment nomenclature or anything like that we will ever discuss. These are incidents, events that come out of the industry for during construction and remodeling work. Yeah, we'll get started. This particular incident came to us where a team was executing a mop. In that mop, they were energizing a MSSG, medium voltage switch gear. As typical, when you energize from upstream to your equipment that you want energized, a reading is taken from PQM. And during the time when they did the energizations, they closed the breaker, went to the equipment, and they got a 0 voltage reading. At that moment, the lotto manager called a halt to everything, did a technical back out on the mop, and then reopened the breaker, the upstream breaker, locked everything out, did live, and then went into trying to determine what went wrong. The subsequent review pointed to that point-to-points were not done for these breakers, and that they were wired incorrectly. Can we skip to the next slide? Move to the next slide, please. So when they broke this down, they looked at a couple of things here. The initial RCA did, as I mentioned, point to breakers being miswired. And this is one that, the industry comes out of the industry as we see more and more with these third party or integrators performing work. And then this particular one had a skid. The skid was built. Point-to-points were done at the vendor's location, and that documentation went as a report to the project site. Project site saw the verification, saw the forms, and thought, okay, well, that's good. We don't need to check anything. So they did a L2 verification. They looked at everything, sealed it up using a tamper seal, which we do see the industry using a lot, and went about their business. Again, the RCA pointed to the verification's not complete, and then false L2 stickers, false positive L2 stickers being installed. Some of the actions that were taken on that, obviously, as I mentioned, it was immediate stop work implemented, the back out, the lockout, and the verification. Some of the remediation is they had to go back in and rewire the breakers so that they were going to where the energy was supposed to go to. They did an audit of other adjacent skids to verify that those were correct as well. And then NCR was a formal issue to the vendor. Some of those long-term verifications that they're doing were 10% of spot checks, as well as leadership involvement, and then hold points are sourced for voltage. Next slide, please. And the last slide here, talks about, want to get some of everyone's input here, right, is point-to-points, right? We know that point-to-points are critical, continuity tests are critical prior to energizations, but, a lot of times we'll get something from a vendor or an integrator, and there may be their paperwork embedded in that. And do we take it as a for sure, as this situation was, that it is exactly as described? Or do we go ahead and do our own point-to-points? A lot of these things we've seen many times in the industry during the MOP. Is there a section number one in the MOP that you did do point-to-points, continuity checks, or did the vendor, the supplier, that integrator do those point-to-points? The oversight, making sure that you're collecting, if your integrator is saying that, yes, we did our point-to-points, making sure that that is being collected and it is a document, that you can attach into a MOP to look back at. But again, the point here was verifying, did they actually do what they said they were doing? The end-to-end tracking, we're seeing more and more pre-populated skids with equipment, electrical equipment being performed at integrator sites and shipped to our project sites. But making sure that there is an end-to-end tracking that's maintained throughout all of this. So once it leaves a site and comes to your project site, that there's an end-to-end and there's a clear handoff with these. Obviously, the industry, we're all moving fast. Data centers cannot be built fast enough globally with the demand that we're seeing. And it's time lost in an event. For example, this particular event, I believe they said they spent 3 days and there was 30 people in a room for 3 days. three separate meetings. And I think they said it was an hour, hour and a half each meeting. So 30 people losing 3.5 or 4 hours, 5 hours of their time. How critical is that to do in just the point to point and getting that done and knocked out and verified 100%? Is there a lost time? Is it worth the time? Are we doing what we should be doing? So, with that being said, I wanted to open it up to this group and kind of see where everyone feels that it should be or what they're doing for best practices and lessons learned.
Had this been energized yet, Wayne?
It had not. From what I understand, they were saying that this was a first time energization to
So,
that ESG.
so were these checks pre-energization? So like level 2, say.
Yeah. So at level 2, you would do your point to point, your continuity test,
Yeah.
verification. Those would get documented, and then embedded in a mop, there would be a line item or a step that says, okay, check your point to points. Has it been verified?
Wayne, do they have a point-to-point open verification?
So they had
So,
the verification from the integrator,
Right.
and the team at that point took it for a gospel that it was done, and they just
mhm.
grabbed that and then attached it like you would normally, attached it to the mop. And once they got to that step in the mop, they saw the point-to-point verification. They saw the form was there, so they saw a tamper seal on the equipment, and they thought, okay, well, everything's in line. Let's go ahead and energize.
Hmm.
So
So,
anyway,
so I suppose what's so with this then, the the procedures are quite stringent on, they're quite thorough. So, has there been assumptions made for us to be at this point then?
I
Is
think
a
with this one, Dan, that's a great point. There was the assumption, right? And we can't afford to make assumptions, right? The assumption from the site team was that integrator did their job. We have a form to back that up, but oftentimes we see where that may or may not have gotten done. These integrators are just as busy as we are. They're supplying equipment to everyone in the industry. So they're backed up, and we know that there are humans, and there are humans that are interfacing equipment. Those humans can make their own decisions, and in this particular case, it wasn't corrected as it was said based off of the form that they received.
and in this
Normally,
case, like has the tag added to that assumption? So if they're seeing the tag on there, does that give the indication that everything is correct and they're ready to progress to the next level? So having that
and
tag
Daniel,
on.
that's a great point because the team, as part of the contributing factors, they did see a tag. They call them tamper seals.
Yeah.
And in those tamper seals, they go on by the third party commissioning agent after they've completed L2 inspections. That is to verify no one goes back in that cabinet. That seal's intact. It hasn't been cut or broken in any way. We're good to energize. So the assumptions were made. The integrator did their job. We don't have to do our job. We just put the sticker on there and say energize.
Okay. Yeah. So I can see it's a really good system. I think, and most people on the call have probably got a similar commissioning process as well at each level. And I think from a validation and verification side, if once it's completed and you put a label, a colored label or an anti-tamper tally or tag on there, that gives you a feeling of confidence that you're ready to progress. But I suppose in this instance, that's also given a bit of a feeling of to make an assumption, seeing that tally or seeing that anti-tamper tag and making that assumption that the previous checks are all correct, leading to having that tag on. I think it's a good system, isn't it? But when it's fallen down in the process, it gives a false sense of security to the people progressing the project.
Absolutely. And I think that's why we're bringing it up here to say, is it worth the effort on taking somebody else's word for it? Well, obviously, this is your team, this is your vendor. You would trust them. However, keeping in mind, like I mentioned, we're all busy, right? And again, when you bring human interface to anything, there's a potential. So the industry, we have to ask ourselves, is it worth the time to go ahead and do these checks ourselves, even though we're getting these verifications, versus it not working and then having to stop and do an investigation that's going to take everybody's time.
Yeah, it's all down to that people, isn't it? It's funny because it goes from this into, I suppose, work stream 4, where we're talking about the competencies, gaps, not enough personnel. It all kind of links together, doesn't it? So it's a really good point. Has anybody got anything to add on to that? Anyone in the community got any experiences of similar things?
This
If not,
has happened quite a bit in the industry over the last 2 years, not necessarily early in this level, but even connecting equipment on site. And the reason I asked about we called it gap verification, because we're not doing just single, conductors. There's bundles, and at any given time, those bundles can split. And so a lot of folks are doing point-to-point continuity checks, which was giving false positives, not taking into account the one cable that went off to the other PDU and had false energizations. The point you're trying to get at, though, is with I would I would I would like to see the RCA from the integrator without knowing who the integrator is, of course, of where the gap is, because you should be able to expect a lot, but there is probably something to be said, trust but verify, like we've always heard, and trying to, once you get the connection of the modules, maybe doing a ring out before initial energization probably doesn't take that much time. Going from, shutting a breaker with no power to it and seeing if it goes where it's supposed to go resistance wise. But yeah, this is a tough one with the speed we're building.
Hey, Wayne and Daniel, as Lanny Floyd here, I had a comment. Um, One of the issues is how do we monitor quality control of our suppliers? And sometimes that involves, an on-site visit of where these skids are being built or integrated, and just reviewing what systems does that organization have in assuring the quality that you are expecting. And I don't know, I'm not aware if there's any great template to follow on that, but again, it really involves building that relationship and establishing that expectation. And Wayne, you talked about trust and verify. This is where you can really dig into that is okay, we see what you say your quality control process is before these skids leave to and come to our site. But let's talk about it in action. What does it really look like? How do you monitor that? Do you just accept it? So I'll just leave that thought with you.
No, and that's a great thought, great point, Lanny. Obviously, L1s used to be commonplace everywhere, right? We did factory witness testing, but I'm seeing in the industry more and more folks are moving away from that L1, that factory witness test, in order to trust the integrator, the vendor, the supplier, that they're doing their due diligence and then bringing it to us. I do agree with you, Lanny. Factory witness testing needs to be much more robust, because these kind of things could be ironed out at the factory or the supplier. Good point.
yeah, definitely good points. And then just finally, before we move on to the work streams, Carl Deloof has just added in there that everything's suspect until proven correct. And he's experienced several DOA with full QA QC certifications, and they are now testing prior to placement, which again is good. It's belt and braces. I suppose the question you probably ask is what you're paying your suppliers and your project management teams to do. If you have to then, if you can get them to do it, then great. But if you've got to repeat the tasks yourself, again, it's getting that quality control in place, isn't it? But it's a really good point, Carl. I appreciate that. So the work streams, work stream 1, which is based on commissioning, transition, and turnover. So we're just going to talk through what they are for work stream 1 and 2, and then focus our time in 3 and 4, just to give the guys that time to talk through some content. So Wayne, I don't know if you wanted to talk through quickly what workstream one was, just to cover it?
Absolutely. And, this is commissioning transition from construction, IST, to hand over to operations and facility readiness. Our part of our team here, your team here working, is to put together a commissioning safety checklist that's can be used throughout the industry. And that work stream is being completed soon and soon to be delivered, as it shows by Q2 and workstream 2.
And then workstream 2 is around, again, it's a wide one, unified energy control plan. So focusing on predominantly lockout and tagout. So this is based around the discrepancies between lockout tagout at different phases. So throughout construction, commissioning, and then operational. And again, these two actions are just here as a starting point, but there's lots of places where this can go. So one of the things that was talked through was from a construction side, performing a side-by-side gap analysis between what the expectations are of the client in their lockout and tagout program, or ESP, in comparison to each level of vendor on the contract, with the GCs or the ECs, to make sure that everyone is aligned with who's in operational control of the networks, and to make sure that the expectations of lockout and tagout matches the clients as well. So Wayne took us through some work that he'd done in the past. And then secondly, we've talked about the use of digital lockout tagout systems. I think this needs to be probed a little bit further, but we did have MC Dean talking through the benefits of a digital lockout tagout system, and again, which promoted a lot of discussion around making sure people have got the right skills, knowledge, and experience to utilize those systems safely. So we will be looking at those a bit further. But I'll now pass you over for workstream 3, which is around arc flash and electrical hazard management. So do you want to, I suppose, just briefly on this one. So this is again a big topic, but it's all based around obviously the risk to persons from arc flash and electrical hazards. So we're going to hand over now to Matt Morgan, who's going to talk through the arc flash playbook that was discussed on the last session, and I'll pass you over.
Thanks, Dan. One of the first things I'd like to get, it's kind of already a preloaded question, but for everyone in the chat, if you could throw in there, what's your biggest concern during initial energization of electrical equipment? Obviously, with our near miss we discussed, and then the slide's previous statement, we already know what most of it is, but what I'd like to really think about is what our concerns are and what's the smallest things that cause the biggest problems for electrical equipment when we're going for initial energizations. One of the things as we continue answering in the chats or thinking to yourselves, but one of the things that's always been a concern for me, obviously, when it comes to electrical work, I've been doing it since the mid-90s. When we first started, we didn't even talk about this, which is crazy, but arc flash didn't exist. So whenever something blew up in our face, we just didn't know what it was and continued on. Luckily, we started updating everything and realized how lucky we were. We were always focused on just electric shock, which was actually pretty easy to avoid. Arc flash, however, was easy to get yourself into. With that, we had multiple reasons why an arc flash would occur, but there are actually even more opportunities for them to occur when you're in a construction environment. New builds haven't really tested things yet, may not know where the wires are going. Actually, Wayne's near miss was a lucky near miss, because what happens quite a bit when things are miswired is one of those cable bundles goes to something that is also attached to a grounded bus, and now you have an explosion in a switchgear that you didn't even know you were energizing. So that happens more than it should. but there's probably some things we could put in place to try to prevent that. So we had initial energizations due to incorrect verification is an issue. And then the other one is, of course, when you're in a construction environment, one of the things you produce the most and what you always have on the site, the first thing you do on a construction site is create an environment that is not good for electricity. You get rid of everything that keeps dust down, and then you create a big clay field. And then everybody walks around in that clay field and walks around all the places you're trying to build electrical equipment with. And then on top of that, we're constantly building equipment, bringing in equipment, wiring, shedding things, and ending up creating what's FOD. And everybody, they don't know what FOD is. They don't know what FOD means. They know what it is. And basically, that's just foreign objects and debris. And that's one of the biggest causes of arc flashes, not just within initial energizations, but also when we conduct maintenance way down the road. People don't maintain good work environments. Clean as you go, you probably see it as a practice. What we're going to talk a little bit about today is the different things that you have that can cause problems on your site. A lot of it has to do with not cleaning as you go because of time constraints, not storing equipment properly. One of the things you'll always get pinged on in an operational environment is not storing anything in an electrical room. Metal shavings when you're doing work, tools left behind, things like that. So one of the things for some of the companies I've worked for in the past, we always had pretty good work execution, testing, tracking, even our QC stuff. We would try to get really good for all of our electrical workers. And then we would still have too many issues of flashover and our flash events. And a lot of it was due to FOD. What we realized, and a lot of other companies were realizing, is we were focusing our training on the people doing the work and not on everybody who was on site. So FOD and arc flashes is everybody's problem. Cleaning crews, doesn't matter who it is, but everybody should be trained on it. So what we worked on with a bunch of different companies was Arc Flash Playbook. And basically it brought in a lot of different programs that exist for Arc Flash. NFPA 70E doesn't actually have a really robust how to stop arc flash. It just tells you how to mitigate based off the incident energies and stuff like that. So we had different programs we put in place that we wanted to make sure we could use from either IEEE, even just basic work documents, to create a playbook that would help create a good prevention strategy for us to be able to go to. And it's not just your team, it's for vendors, contractors, everybody who'll be on site at all phases of the build and including into operations. A lot of times what you'll find is in operational sites, they're meticulous about FOD and keeping things clean, but we don't reinforce it enough on the construction side. What's even worse is, just as what Wayne talked about, tamper seals. It's the biggest, not the biggest, I don't want to say tamper seals are no good, but a lot of times we'll put tamper seals on and then think everything's good. The problem with that is if construction is still going on, you have any open environment at all, you still have the potential of stuff getting inside your machines if they aren't closed up properly. And example is just putting covers in your electrical equipment. You go into a space and you see that cover is ripped open. That basically means your seal is no good anymore. You have to inspect the inside of that equipment now. So that's something that has to be improved upon. And that's one of the things we talked about, is having a good strategy for going over for issues with FOD. Some of the things you would look at is designating FOD sensitive areas. So for example, on construction sites, we do have some items that are naturally going to create debris, dust. If we have to do grinding, we have to bend conduit, cut conduit, and stuff like that. But the important thing to understand is it's easy to establish a specific station for that environment and then enforce it, that that's the only place it happens. And we want to make sure that we include all that. So you just have debris, wires that aren't where they're supposed to be. One of the biggest things I've seen in some of the sites is they will have a space that's got their labels up. It says it's ready to be energized, and then you'll see a hole below the switch gear going outside. So obviously now you have weather, moisture, and no dehumidifiers in the space. And that's something else you may have to think about. I know I saw in the chat desiccant. Desiccant has to be tracked. And operational sites, that's actually a maintenance item to verify all our dehumidification systems are available. We don't usually have that built into construction because the expectation is you're turning it over in a quick manner. We didn't back when we were building things before data centers, electricity was a small part of the build. In data centers, it's all electricity and all electrical stuff. Even the mechanical stuff is very heavy in electrical work. So we got to basically concentrate on some of those items. But ensuring that everyone at all levels are involved in making sure FOD is a priority and preventing arc flash causing events are a priority. So obviously, requiring clean as you go is one thing, but enforcing it, make sure we're checking on it. And it's not a compliance thing, just helping people out. Just as little as you see something on the ground, pick it up. Don't walk off and tell somebody. Just pick it up, find out how you can help in improving that process. But sign-offs for first-of-a-kind equipment. One of the things that you got to look at is, on one of my jobs, we got spoiled. We used to have switch gear that was enclosed, didn't have it, it had internal ventilation systems. And then at some period of time, we changed to a switch gear that actually had vents. And we did not change any of our work habits when we were installing the equipment. Needless to say, we missed an opportunity on a first of a kind test to see what issues we had for energization processes. And there was very high probability of FOD in this equipment as it was in a a modification area. So those are some of the things you could look at. Talked about the critical zooms. Obviously, you have generators, transformers, electrical rooms, power distribution units. Now, obviously, the colors that are on the drawing aren't consistent with what I'm going on the bottom. The important thing is when you come up with a FOD plan is look at where you can accept things to create FOD, but understand that it all still has to be cleaned up because it's easy for debris and dirt to get transferred over. So you have your awareness area, which is green, your orange area for control areas where you have to be careful of it and have pre-task approved. You know, if it's going to be a FOD generation job, it has to be approved ahead of time. And then red is critical areas. It's just absolutely, you can't permit any FOD creating event happening in there, no matter what you do, whatever you have to do outside of that area and move it in, even if it's extra work and extra time. Something else to look at when it comes to arc flash events and how to prevent them is this is not a first energization problem. This is a planning issue before you even break ground. It's build phases. So one of the things we looked at is there was the biggest roadblock to a robust FOD prevention program is it wasn't built into the timeline. So what ends up happening is you get rushed, you don't have time to clean. You get rushed, you don't have time to do an inspection before you start work to make sure that the equipment is closed up before you have a FOD creating event. So something to look at is all your training that you need for FOD, all your training for even energizations and qualified electrical worker going into work stream 4 again. Are you building that time into your timeline, or is it just this is going to be put in place, this is when it's energized, this is put in place, this is when it's energized? If you don't have training for all the things that are going to stop your timeline, then you're already starting behind schedule. So things to think about when you're planning your job. Whenever someone's going to go out to do some work, adding 5 to 10 minutes to do a pre-job inspection, that includes a FOD inspection to be done. Adding pre-energization inspections and QC inspections to the commissioning path that is a revisit. All
What would
those
that training
items
look like,
can be done.
Matt? What would that
Sorry?
what sort of what would that training look like? And is that reference obviously these are parts from the Arc Flash playbook? Would that be referenced in there, like what the expectations would be and who for?
Correct. Yeah. So we did build some expectations for different types of trades of what FOD is and what your trade could be contributing to FOD and also how you could help. So cleaning crews, for example, this was at my other job, not the one I'm at. We had folks coming in with blowers in our electrical rooms. And and they didn't know any better, so they didn't
to
train
clean the
them. So
floor space, but obviously
that's
moving
right.
things into within
Yeah,
the panels.
yeah. And then our supervisor or superintendent there told them you can't use blowers, but he didn't tell them what they could do. So when they went from that, they went to push brooms, which wasn't a whole lot better. And finally, I was able to show up and say, "Hey guys, light mop, just clean it up. Don't be moving dust around in this room. That's pretty vital equipment." And so those are the type of things that we got to try to get to. A lot of times, these items that training is always truncated and rushed, and sometimes they're down to just basically a check in the box. One of the things that annoys me whenever I go to a site is someone asking me if you are NFPA 70E trained. There's no such thing. It's your electrical safety program trained based, and that's based off 70E. So, and on top of that, you have other sites, IEEE, all these other things. So it needs to be a robust training program. So to answer your question specifically on FOD is what is FOD? Some people don't even know what it means. Some people just aren't trained to clean up and make sure they don't leave a mess. But I think the next two slides down, you'll see a timeline on the next slide, and then items you could train to that are in the Arc Flash playbook are two slides below that. If it's there, I don't know if we cut those for time. That's a
Yeah.
sample of a FOD. There you go. So those are some training elements that you could have for everybody is what is FOD? How do you identify zones? Sources of identification and knowing what kind of activities contribute to FOD. Sometimes people don't even know what they're doing is contributing to FOD. Packaging. I've seen so many cardboard boxes cause problems for my teams because they don't realize what's inside some of those cardboard boxes or what's keeping them, sturdy enough to not break as they're shipped. Clean as you go, using accountability logs to keep people in and out. It seems like sometimes it's a little more admin, but like Wayne talked about, little extra planning and foresight up front usually prevents a lot of work stoppage. And training can be conducted on site, reinforced, and it's not a one-time training. That's the other issue you may run into is a lot of times it's one-time training. This FOD should be a very normal rotation in your training program or even your morning meetings, having the safety teams talk about how to prevent it, and have the trades talk about how they could help in preventing them. And then prior to energization, there has to be an all teams walkthrough of a space, not just one guy and hoping he gets everything. You want to make sure a whole team is in there backing each other up. And then, of course, if there's a FOD related incident or near miss, we have to track those, see where we're failing and what causes the different issues. Because sometimes it's not FOD, sometimes it's FOD from the vendor. And now we got to make sure we get back to the vendor that he has an issue with his equipment before it starts causing issues at a bunch of other sites. One of the things I like about this and what we're doing now is Wayne is providing us things that we could immediately go out to our team and say, hey, have you seen this? And then all of a sudden we may be able to stop 10 to 12 other near misses that were happening. We're having the same item. So some of the things that you'll find in the Arc Flash playbook, it's a lot of information on a little bit of paper. And I'm on my second set of vocal cords, so I can't talk a long time. Prior Navy, I used to yell at people. But Exhibit A has a daily FOD checklist. It's a good little template to look through. Exhibit B's FOD prevention plan, re-energization checks, room readiness, equipment vendors. But one thing to look at with the exhibits, although one's called the daily checklist, this uses a pre-task checklist. So every time you do a job, you could do multiple ones of these every time you go into a space. You want to ensure the team knows what the expectations are, and that should, just like we're required to talk about emergency preparedness for electrical work, you should be talking about what would lead to that emergency before you start the work also. Ensure the space is ready to make sure that you have steps if problems are found. Like what if you walk into a room and a seal is broken? That's a stop work. You want to make sure we find out what's going on and there is an actual inspection inside. Obviously, after you create an electrically safe work condition, to make sure that everything is still good in there. And then also it provides a closeout checklist to make sure teams aren't contributing to FOD creation. One of the items we found was uh, if we did a end of job closeout, kind of the feedback of work, and then had this supervisor or foreman go over through a space and make sure that all the guys actually did clean as they go. But overarching planning, the timeline, Exhibit B, the fraud prevention plan, that's an overarching item. Bunch of timelines of executions, different responsibilities. But there's a lot of information in there, and it's a useful tool. What I would tell everyone is don't copy and paste the playbook. Make sure it is personalized to your job. 90% of it is useful to everyone. Don't get me wrong, but there are some terms that may be specific to different groups. I will admit that when we built this playbook, it was us, Microsoft, HP, about 6 or 7 other groups, but we were all working on basically 3 different sites. So it was very specific to those 3 sites that we built some of the stuff. But I think all the information is very useful. The biggest thing is making sure it's reinforced. So I want to make sure that, like I said, we don't copy and paste the playbook. It's personalized. Make sure there's a strategic assessment of what your needs are and dial it in for your workforce, your equipment, and the environment you're working in. So my ArcFlash playbook in Arizona is quite a bit different and has one specific section that's different than in Hawaii. In Hawaii, it's where we were building, always raining, always humid. So we constantly had to go in and verify desiccate. We were replacing desiccate maybe once a week on a lot of our machines until we were going, making sure that you understand how switchgear heaters work and getting those energized as quickly as possible. I know that's harder to do on data centers, the way we energize and it's all over the place. I think that would cause a nightmare if we actually used equipment heaters properly on some of the equipment that if they have them installed. Uh, Obviously, you could tell I have more of an outdoor and field tech for a lot of our equipment with equipment heaters. But if there's any questions, please go ahead and bring them up. That's pretty much all I've got for talking about the ArcFlash playbook.
No, appreciate that, Matt. Is there any questions? I've seen a couple of comments. Obviously people saying, take time for FOD, checking for FOD and things there, but obviously probably expected to be quite difficult to do. It it's funny, isn't it? Because it's really basic when you break it down. It's debris and well, all the things that make up FOD obviously form part of that, and just that basic awareness. A lot of it of a civils team doing a task that they're doing to meet a milestone, and they probably don't think of the outputs that can affect other electromechanical systems on the site. So
Oh
just
yeah,
by having things there, it's not just electrical, it's the mechanical systems, ventilation, which things like dust and debris would significantly impact. So I think it's definitely a good thing. So yeah, if there's any
yeah,
questions from anybody else in there, if not, we can.
yeah.
Carl's made a
I
comment
will.
to say that in the wind industry, they've got carbon brush dust in clean
Yeah,
areas, and they use HEPA
yeah.
vacuums with the exhaust
Ugh,
extended.
carbon brushes. We
Yeah,
one of the things going back to what you said, Dan, is it's funny how some of the smallest things cause us the biggest problems. It's because we're not concentrating on it. One of the things when I used to train for troubleshooting in the Navy, I always told them, look at the ground wire first. You guys go looking for the most complicated issue, and then you
yeah.
looked right by the door. Hey, your on off switch is not connected. So
It's normally the
sometimes it is the
simplest things.
simplest things. That's right. So you get those knocked out. Sometimes the bigger things are taken care of by the because you got the small things taken care of. But I appreciate your time, Dan. Thanks for talking
No,
about this.
no, brilliant. Thank you. And then work stream 4, I'll pass you over again to go through the contractor and competency management side, and then we'll have Janine from the Data Center Safety Council and Jose go through their content.
right, you can go to the next one, please, Ben.
Okie
And then
doke.
the next one.
Good title slide.
Yes, yeah. So I just want to briefly recap what we are doing with Workstream 4. So really, of course, with the training content in depth, we want to start building out some learning outcomes for each of the role classifications that are either affected or working on electrical in data center environments. And so with that, I'm going to one more slide here, and then we actually have a large ask for the participants on the call, and we wanted to allow some time for you to be able to participate in a survey, which Ben will put in the chat. So if you want to go to the next slide, and then I'll kind of explain that. So one of the first things is, like I mentioned, we're going to be developing learning outcomes by job classification, so not just qualified electricians at data centers. And in order to do this, we wanted to collect some anonymous data, either on electrical incidents, near misses, work activities, and life cycle phase, and then also some training coverage and gaps, and apply that to these learning outcomes that we're going to be developing. In addition to this, we wanted to kind of couple this with being able to compare with some incident trends and those learning outcomes in combination. So hopefully, if you want to go to the next slide, Ben. Oh, there we go. The deliverable outcome, we will be able to present on these workplace incidents. And then also, like I said, having a little more robust of the learning outcomes that we're looking to develop and supply to everybody participating on this call and to the industry overall. So with that, I wanted to give, let's see, till the bottom of the hour here to feel free to use. We have this, again, it's an anonymous survey. Shouldn't take you too long to go through. We really appreciate, quality data. It's kind of this crowdsourcing where we have this opportunity to everyone who's participating in here to give back to, what the survey is. And then hopefully we can get out some quality information and be able to deliver what I just kind of summarized at the top. So Ben put the survey in the link. There's the QR code. I want to acknowledge, I know everyone cannot use QR codes. And then hopefully we can send out an email after this, again, with the link to maybe spread to contacts that you might have within the data center industry to hopefully get a good large data set for everyone to go off of. So with that, if you don't mind clicking on the link, starting that survey, and then I think Ben and Dan are going to kind of wrap up if there's any conversations to continue here into the bottom while everyone's taking the survey. And I greatly appreciate the contribution. And I know Jose and Chad, we all worked on this together, so hoping to get some data together. Thank you.
No, appreciate that. I guess whilst people are doing the survey, is there any key points that you're trying to identify? Are you going to follow that up once you've got the data through and given it some time to review your survey data?
Yeah, I mean, you never know when you do these surveys, right? You have your null hypothesis of what you're setting out. So I think it's just going to be telling. We are trying to focus globally, right? So there's a breakdown of incidents from JPAC, AMR, and EMEA, and hopefully we will have some good regional data to also tease out of the survey. So I don't want to, skew anything by having a bias right now, but hopefully we'll get some good stuff.
Thanks, Janine. Like you say, we'll be sharing this round after as well, post event.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
And Janine, the reminder too is that as folks do these surveys, it is not going back to who, it's anonymous completely, correct?
Yes, there's absolutely no question asking somebody's name. So if you end up putting your name, I don't know what to say, but nobody is asking that. So please don't. Yeah. Thanks, Wayne. Thanks for pointing that out.
Absolutely.
Any questions in the chat about, I guess anything today or specifically the survey, any outcomes or anything, feel free to ask.
Is there a time period? It's just the last 12 months, the time period you're looking at for the questions.
Yes, yeah. We originally had, 24, 12, but I think just to keep it within the last 12 months to make it a little easy on the initial grab of data, keep it simple.
Okay.
Of course, that's going to be, from March to March or, just the last year. We don't have to get that too granular. Jose, did you have anything else to add, or hopefully everyone's diligently taking the survey?
No, I think you hit the high points. Definitely, it's anonymous, and we're just trying to make sure we have something useful from an information standpoint to get back. And there's a lot of people on the call. Everybody's got great insights, and we just want to be able to share those insights. So appreciate everybody taking the time to do it. Hey, Matt, I do agree with one of the comments earlier back to the FOD on the setting time to do the FOD inspections. Anything that you can give back out on how you can get the company or the leadership to buy off on putting that time back in for those inspections? Like the comment said, hard to do in practice. Seems like exactly the right thing to do, but hard to do in practice. Any ways to make that easier to put it in practice?
Setting it early. We talk about it in our kickoffs, is making sure that it's understood that allowing for time, obviously, as a EC and slash vendor, we're at the mercy of a lot of you guys. But if I'm on the site, I usually push back. But I always tell people we're taking the time we need, and no one's going to tell you to do something unsafe. Usually, it's because they're not being reminded that what they're asking you to do is unsafe, and you just conform to what they're asking. Something we always learned in my previous life in nuclear. All you got to do is say, "Are you rushing me?" and then everybody's all of a sudden you get time. Yeah. I don't know if that truly answers your question, Jose, but it helps.
No, I love the are you rushing me?
Wayne, did you have a question earlier?
It was not a real question with this. I did want to bring up something. A lot of this conversation today made me think about something that the industry has been seeing, and I wanted to just briefly mention it. As the industry is growing, we're taxing on our suppliers to get us equipment on a global scale. Some things that we are seeing is in our electrical cabinets are getting smaller and smaller, which means our wire management is critical inside of these cabinets. Some of the things that the industry has been seeing is as continuity checks are done, point to points are done, everything rings out good. Then we put a panel cover back on, run the screws in, and because the panels are smaller and the cabinets are smaller, your cable interface may get closer and closer to those panel doors, and screws may penetrate those feeders. Where you had a point to point, you had continuity, everything was good, and then you put your panel back on and ran a screw into it. You wouldn't know that until you energized. Something, just thought I'd bring that up. These conversations today made me think of that. Perhaps, Daniel, we can put together a safety comment to that next month or something.
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, the safety moments are great. I think, and if anybody on the call has ones that they want to share, even if you wanted to go through an NDA process, we'd be happy to do that. Totally anonymize it, and present it on your behalf if you wanted to have an offline discussion with it. Once we've got an NDA sorted, I think that's how we learn. And a big thing with this is that, especially from my experience, a lot of times we come across near misses, or we have instances of safety related issues, and they stay within the company. And sometimes, yeah, the lessons learned get shared within the company, and they can benefit from it. But if it's happened there, the strong likelihood is it's happening somewhere else as well. So if anybody on the call is willing to share any of their safety moments, if it does have to be anonymous, again, we can support that as an independent company. We can do it. 'Cause I think that's what we want from these calls. We want to share knowledge and experience, good and bad. If we can learn from it, then yeah, I'd promote that. I think it's a good point, Wayne. Definitely something to include for next time or in the future.
Just while we're on the point, Dan, do you want to mention the upcoming events planned from Scanwest's perspective for the year?
Yeah, I think yeah. So we've got obviously we've got the power hours going on every 6 weeks. So we've got one next week. Again, but if anyone wants to be involved in that, please let us know and get in touch, and we can get you involved. The next one's going to be on the 2nd of April, where we talk through substation entry to identify the hazards and then the safe selection of PPE. And we're also going to go through the differences between selecting the right PPE for the task and matching the label to the arc flash survey as well, just to make sure you're suitably protected. So we're going to be doing them every 6 weeks. We're talking about switching, and then one in a couple of months is, I suppose, one that might cause a little bit of friction, but it's for the greater good. We're going to discuss the differences between UK and US approaches to electrical safety. So that I think that'll be a good opportunity for us to again collaborate and maybe learn from each other, both sides of the pond, and hopefully stay friends after. Would be the aim. So yeah, we've got a webinar power hours going on throughout the year. We've committed now. We are going to go ahead with 2 conferences. So we've got one in the UK on July the 9th, which again is global. So if anybody wants to attend, it's a one-day event. It's one day purely because we're focused at trying to get more attendance from engineers and technicians, and as well as the electrical safety guys, safety managers, ops managers, things like that. It's at the Royal Institution, which is a, um, a, a great facility with a lot of history. So it's where Michael Faraday was based in the 1800s, and his workshop's still there in the basement. So it's a really significant place for us to talk about like electrical safety. We wouldn't be talking about it if the guy himself hadn't come up with electromagnetic induction. We wouldn't be there. We wouldn't be where we are now. So yeah, so that's going to be a really good event on July the 9th. And we're going to have a US conference in the same location in Chantilly, Virginia, in the Westfield Marriott, because it was a great location, worked really well for us. And that's going to be in October. Again, we're going to share the date in the coming weeks, Ben. And if I missed anything else out?
No, that's it really. We're going to be avoiding October 15th, but we'll be around that date, ideally.
Is that US holiday or is that your birthday?
My birthday, so
Yeah.
we'll
We
try
ruined
and.
it for Ben last time, so we're gonna
No,
try
it
and
was
avoid
it
that.
was great.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much it from our side. Um, so yeah, if there's a yeah, we will stay friends, Jose. We'll try. Um, but no, yeah, so if you want to get involved in any of those things, conferences, power hour webinars, or again within these calls, it's all about sharing information and collaborating. You know, we all stand on the shoulders of giants and learn from each other. So yeah, that really open to promote that, and anything we can learn from each other is definitely valuable. Is there any closing comments from anybody? And if not, I suppose we can wrap it up, Ben.
No, I think we're all good then. Like we mentioned, we'll send across all the details post this webinar. We'll include the survey link for those who couldn't attend the session as well, just to get a well-rounded amount of feedback. And yeah, we'll be scheduling the next one in the coming month.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks for your contributions, and we'll see you next month.